Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. I'm a little under the weather, have been for a few days, expect my voice to sound a little bit different. We'll see how it goes as the video progresses. Before we begin, however, I did just get some new stickers from the Eckhart's Letter Store I wanted to show off. These are, of course, all original designs I commissioned. We're going to be doing a ton more as well, but I wanted to get the sample product first before ordering more designs, and I'm super happy, so if you want to pick some up, I'll link down below, or you can go to eckhartsladder.com. It's a great way to support the channel. It actually really helps. Alright, so this video is predicated on a question asked by Jacob Sundo, who says, what is Thrawn's point in Star Wars canon now? If the Vong are not a threat and Palpatine was actually making super weapons because he was Space Satan, why would Thrawn ally himself with him? He obviously still has his own reasons for being Imperial besides loyalty. We saw that with him building a coalition of allies even before he became a Grand Admiral. First of all, this is a great question, one that I really hope Dave Filoni and the other showrunners and minds behind Ahsoka have considered, but it's also one issue that's existed with Grand Admiral Thrawn since his inception in Star Wars Legends. If you go back to Thrawn's first appearance in the Thrawn trilogy, he is essentially just another really smart Imperial. He's not cruel or sadistic in the same way that Vader or Palpatine sometimes are, but he is still portrayed as an evil force, one who will subjugate civilizations if it gives him a small benefit, who has no problem with civilian casualties. Honestly, the most you ever see Thrawn regret any sort of action is probably when he's attacking the Coral Vanda, which was a submarine, and that was because he was destroying coral reefs, which he thought had aesthetic value. Thrawn in Legends would, however, get whitewashed by the time of the Thrawn duology, where his reasoning for joining the Empire is changed. Basically, instead of just being another Imperial warlord or believer in Imperial values, Thrawn was trying to protect the Chiss Ascendancy and really the galaxy as a whole from outside threats. As the Thrawn duology was being written, it was known that Del Rey was working on the next stage of Star Wars storytelling, which would involve some sort of invasion event, so the ties to that were put into the second book of the Thrawn duology, and later works like The Outbound Flight gave additional context confirming that Thrawn's intention was to get in a position of power where he could marshal forces against not just the Yuuzhan Vong also, but other threats in the unknown regions. And that's also why we see Thrawn create the Empire of the Hand, which is essentially a secret quasi-imperial state in Chiss space, or around Chiss space. Personally, it's my belief, and I think a lot of people agree, that Timothy Zahn regretted writing what would be such a popular character with a relatively simple purpose in the Thrawn trilogy. And to this day, I still don't know how I feel about the retcon. I appreciate Thrawn as a bit more complex of a character, but I do think that Star Wars needs good villains and good evil villains as well. In Legends, one of the big reveals at the end of the Thrawn duology is that Thrawn has prepared a clone of himself to return to the galaxy, and the leadership at the Empire of the Hand believes that Thrawn may actually lend his skills to the New Republic, which is compelling, but again, does that diminish his status as a villain? I don't know. Why am I talking about Legends when the question was clearly geared towards canon? Because we've seen really the same thing happening. This time, however, the intention behind the character is switching not based on time, with the earlier versions of Thrawn being evil and the later versioning softening, but rather based on the medium. What do I mean by that? Well, Timothy Zahn, the original creator of Thrawn, has returned to Star Wars canon and at this point has written 6 stories across 2 different trilogies. There's the new Thrawn trilogy and the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. The Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, which I hate to say I find very dull, is all about Thrawn's time with the Chiss Defense Force, specifically facing threats like the Grisk. Generally, this could have fit into Thrawn's Legends backstory as well, although Timothy Zahn has created a far more sophisticated version of the Chiss society Thrawn hails from. However, his departure from Chiss space matches up well with what happened in Legends, where he's really taken an exile of his own choice so that he can study and perhaps infiltrate the Empire. This is what we see in the Thrawn trilogy, which I actually quite like, especially the first book. Thrawn in exile presents himself to the Empire Empire, offers his service, and he rises through the ranks of the Imperial Navy until he achieves the rank of Grand Admiral. Nonetheless, this version of Thrawn in the novels in particular is not only softer, he has a respect for his enemies, and he's not sort of usually throwing civilians under the line of fire or using them with his tactics. He still is working for his own purpose while in the Empire. He's trying to defend the Chiss, he's just doing so through a new avenue. These are in the novels, as I mentioned. So far, in Thrawn's live action and animated portrayals, we've seen none of this. Thrawn is much like he is in the Thrawn trilogy, where he is an attack dog for the Emperor, and his main distinguishing feature is not some underlying morality, but rather his competency, his understanding of his enemy, and his more nuanced use of tactics. So when examining Thrawn's purpose in Star Wars canon, we need to do so with an understanding of the past and an understanding of this key dynamic and at times key conflict. The question is whether Thrawn will continue through canon as his relatively simple animation portrayal, or whether he'll have the more complex motives of the novel. I personally think that Dave Filoni is more of a fan of villain Thrawn, and I say complex versus simple when discussing his personality, but I'm not making a value statement there. I don't think it's necessarily true that a gray Thrawn is better than a pure villain Thrawn, and you can make explanations like Thrawn was changed by his defeat, by the rebels, by his time outside of the galaxy. Maybe it's made him more harsh, or maybe it will just be sort of an inconsistency which is never really cleaned up. I will say I actually really liked how they did Thrawn in Ahsoka. I had problems with the finale, but not really because of Thrawn as a character. I just thought it wasn't directed very well. It does seem like he's gearing up for just another campaign against the New Republic, however, which will be very similar to what we've seen in Star Wars Legends. He's marshaling resources, he's now returned to the galaxy. I'm personally very excited to see where that goes, but the question of his greater purpose is up in the air, especially with the other things going on in Ahsoka in that new sort of Mandoverse timeline. We've got the Ones being introduced somehow. We know that Thrawn probably is dead by the time of the sequel trilogy, but who knows? So yeah, where Thrawn goes depends largely on where Dave Filoni and others see his purpose. Maybe Thrawn has a change of heart and instead of fighting the New Republic decides to sacrifice himself for the greater good. I don't know, but just generally that's not what I expect. I don't think he will be joining the New Republic to fight the Grisk or a Yuuzhan Vong analog. I think he will be defeated kind of normally in combat with the good guys. Those are my thoughts though. I hope you guys let me know yours down below, and I'll see you next time.